All right, for the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 5, Class 3 on June 14th, 2024. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them here with you just by way of your thinking of them. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you. Smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiating from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it would be if we could also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they would go on to stop their distress forever. We're learning that that is possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. Then turn your mind back to that precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet, to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands. And we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of the Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnirya Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. So again, listen to the source of all my good. Think about what it's saying. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to them in the proper way is the root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow them with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I have found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are as fleeting as bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I have died, the things I have done, the white or black, and what these deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrong of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of the Buddha's teaching. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen in too. Grant me then to practice the highest wish for enlightenment, to take upon myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough. For if I am not well trained in the 3 moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the vows for children of the victors. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I have practiced well the paths shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I have entered thus, the cause that gives me both the attainments is keeping my pledges and vows most pure. Grant that I may always keep them, even at the cost of my life. Bless me next to realize the crucial points of both the stages, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times, highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual guide who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, the things within me and outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. So last week we learned the opening lines of 4th chapter. Lele jikten, that's okay. Deeds cause the multitude of worlds. And the first 3 chapters of Abhidharma Kosha are the details about all existing things and how we perceive them, right? Lots of different details about existing things. And then, like, it's not written in words, but it's as if Master Vasubandhu says, and where do you think all of that comes from? So in last class, we were addressing 3 different belief systems that humanity has developed to explain where everything comes from. It's supposed to explain our experiences, like why we experience things the way we do, you know, what are the causes of all of that stuff, designed to help us in some way. And so, you know, we heard about those 3 main belief systems back in Master Vasubandhu's time, and they're not so different from today. One, there's some uncaused original cause, like a big bang. 2, there's some nebulous force, so a principle that created and continues to create the world, or there's a creator God who's, you know, supposedly all loving, all compassionate, all knowing, and all powerful. The first 2, the Big Bang and the Soho, right, the overall creative principle, are said to be unchanging. And that's the rub, right? Can an unchanging thing cause anything to come into being that wasn't before? You know, and the argument would be, yeah, of course, if it's the cause of the world, it's the cause of the world, period. You know, it doesn't matter where it came from. But that doesn't explain our experiences. It just gives us something to blame, right? There's Victor, hello. Same with the solo, this creative principle. If it's not a changing thing, it can't create anything. And if it is a changing thing, in order to be the creator of our world, then something had to act on it to make it act to create the world, in which case it's not really the original cause. Then in terms of a creator being, we had those various arguments before. Now in the commentary, it says, look, if this all-loving, all-compassionate, all-knowing, all-powerful being creates everything, why did they create it in a way that things are sequential? They could have just created everything happening all at once, implying that they could have created our happiness, right? They could have created us all as already happy beings, and they didn't. So he's not saying, oh, see, that doesn't exist. He's saying, look, that being the cause of all creation is insufficient for explaining why sometimes when we do a kind thing, we get a pleasant result. And sometimes when we do a kind thing, we get an unpleasant result. Like, explain that to me. How could a creator being make a world that's like that? Why would they do that? Right? So I know the answer is God works in mysterious ways and we're not supposed to question. And that's useful for many people. When we get to a certain level on our spiritual path, we rethink that and are ready at some point to recognize that, in fact, I need to take personal responsibility for my experiences in my world, because I'm the only one who can change me. I can use the guidance of these other ideas, but to say they're the cause of the world, cause of our experience, is insufficient for what we need, right? So we had those two arguments. That was on your quiz. Then Master Vasubandhu, like all of that is implied. He says, you want to know where all that stuff from chapters 1, 2, 3 comes from? Lele, jikta, not okay. Karma comes from karma. But if we just say comes from karma, if we don't understand what we mean by karma, we're going to, we could get just as wrong an idea as, oh, it comes from Big Bang. So we set about to understand better, what does he mean karma causes the multiple worlds? And Geshe-la modifies that to say deeds, actions cause the multitude of worlds, because if we say Lele Jikten, that's okay, karma causes the multiple worlds, what do we mean by karma? Karma is movement of the mind and what it motivates. So we could say, you want to know where everything comes from? Movement of the mind and what it motivates is what creates the multitude of worlds. Now it's hitting home, right? Whose movement of mind and what it motivates? My experiences are unique to me. Your experiences are unique to you. Why? Because it's your mind that moves and motivates your speech and action. And it's my mind that moves and motivates my speech and action. So deeds cause the multitude of worlds. Now we're even understanding that a little bit better. And then we learned that in this lay, in Lele Jikten, that's okay, there are two kinds of karma in there. When we say movement of the mind, that's one kind. And what it motivates, that's the second kind. So motivating karma, the movement of the mind, and motivated karma, what it makes us do and say. So we're talking about the planting here. Okay? The ripening is whatever happens that makes our mind move, that then motivates us to do something. But when we say motivating karma, it's like that very mind goes from here to there. And then the domino effect is, oh, I am going to do or say something or both in response to that movement of the mind. So motivating karma is just the attention goes to something else and we have an instant conscious reaction to it. And that conscious reaction propels, motivates something of speech or mind. So the two most basic types of karma, motivating karma and motivated karma. And then within motivated karma, deeds of speech and body, they're communicating or not. Remember that confusing. And the non-communicating karma, it has those 5 qualities. It's there even during distraction, even when our mind is stopped. It is virtue or not. It is continuing after, and it takes the great elements as its causes, meaning it's a subtle material thing, physical thing. 5 qualities of non-communicating karma. It's important for some reason. It's gonna come back later. So tonight's class is Gewa Dangmi Gewa, virtue and non-virtue. And so one of the qualities of non-communicating karma is it's virtue or not. And everything that we do is virtue or not. Technically, there's a third category we'll talk about. So, Konglia, I've not been ignoring you. I've just been waiting until I got to this point. So, yes, ma'am, your hand's been up.
Yeah, sorry, it's okay, no problem. Just can teacher explain again the unchanging things, the force, the primal energy. I have no idea. A little bit more about this one. What is it like? Because I know the Big Bang, this one previously explained, and then the creator, and then the force. Can explain a little bit.
Yeah, I'll try. Like in our modern times, I kind of relate to a group of people that they would call us agnostic. You know, we don't flat out reject God. We're not atheists, but agnostic means, you know, you just don't buy into that big guy in the sky. But we do believe that there's some kind of organizing principle, you know, within the universe that keeps everything running smoothly. And, you know, if we can tap into it and rely upon it, it can, you know, that force can give us guidance. It's not a conscious, it's not a being, but it is an intelligence. And so in a sense, like I relate that to, you know, the quantum field is this vast intelligence. It's not a being, but it's right.
I think I get
like
you.
like that.
Yeah. And actually another question is that actually these 3 scenario, unchanging things 2, and then the changing things 1. So actually it happened along the way, but this is not the this is not the cause of the world. Is only us who create all this. So it's the other way around. I mean, first thing is
right.
this
Highest worldview, right? Highest worldview.
Actually this Big Bang, it did happen, and then maybe a creator there is, but it's not the creator, but because of us create them, because of
Right.
our deeds and things like
Right.
that, the other way around, isn't it?
Right, right, right. We create the creator being that we believe created the world. Right, highest worldview, right? But then we have to be careful about what we are talking about, right? Because that could get very dangerous. Oh, I'm the creator of the world, right? You do what I say, because I'm the creator of my world. Like I'm the only existing thing. All the rest of you are my movie. So do what I say, for crying out loud, right? Wrong conclusion.
Can I simply say to other people, we create everything, and if let's say they don't know, and then they'll say that, you have something wrong, something like that.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so today's class is Gewa Dang Mi Gewa, virtue and non-virtue. And there is a lot of Tibetan in this class. Remember, you're not responsible for any of it unless you want to make yourself responsible. But we're wanting to plant seeds, and I rejoice because all the years that I've been making myself do this, put people through this painful Tibetan for my classes. Now we have translator class, right? Now we have a group of people that are getting paid to learn to translate Tibetan. It's like, wow, Sarani did some good in her past life, because Geshe-la tried to make translators out of his students, from whenever he started all the way up to 2015 when that started. And it just wasn't getting anywhere. People learn Tibetan, but not to translate. So yay for us. We're contributing to mixed nuts. So here it is, Gewa Dangmi Gewa. Gewa means good deeds. Now, here, like for a while in these classes, we'll be using the term good deeds and virtue kind of synonymously. But as we're going to see in this class, that's not really precise. Later on, we'll make the distinction between good deeds and virtue, or good deeds and what we call merit. And it's an important distinction for later, right? But so for right now, in this class, we kind of flip between good deeds and virtue, but I just want to say that technically, there are things that are good deeds and not virtue. All virtue is of a good deed done with wisdom. Okay, so Gewa means good deed or virtue. So what would mi Gewa mean? Mi is the negator, so non-virtue. Mi Gewa. Now, Geshe-la is using a different text, a Sakya text, and I don't know which one, for the definitions of virtue and non-virtue. And we're actually going to get neutral karma too for the definitions. Those definitions are not in the Abhidharma Kosha that I'm aware of anyway. So what I'm giving you are definitions that come from a Sakya text. So here's the definition of virtue. Du re shikla namin, yi du ongwa dewa. Those all go together. Actually, these all go together. Yi du ongwa dewa nongwa. Dong tendu dunya le kyope nyangde topche gewa. So remember, the Tibetan syntax goes backwards, but there's two parts of this sentence that are going backwards. So I'm just going to go word for word And then at the end, I'll put it all together for you. Right? So here's gewa. Good deeds or virtue is do re shikla. That term means in the short term. In the short term, gewa is. So that implies that there's going to be two parts to this statement, in the short term and in the long term. Namen is the word for when you're cooking rice and it's finally done, it's namen. It's been cooked and right, its cooking is complete, it's ready to eat. They use this term namen for the karmic cooking result. So it's a term for a karmic result. We use other terms for result when we're talking in logic. And so they use this namen to have within the idea of our karmic result, the idea that it took some time for something to happen to it before it's ready to eat, right? Ready to ripen. So technically it's the word for ripening karma. But we want this idea of cooking, right? Cooking until it's finished. So in the short term, the ripening Yidu Ongwa Dewa. Yidu means desirable. Ongwa means attractive. And Dewa means happy. Happiness, either physical or mental. Nongwa is an experience. So in the short term, ripening is desirable, attractive, happy experience. A good deed in the short term ripens as a pleasant experience, is what this is saying. Dong and Dendu ultimately. Dunya. Anybody remember the word dunya? Dunya ki dunya. Suffering. Suffering. Ultimately, dunya le kyope. Kyope means to protect. Ultimately, protection from suffering. Nyangde, Tibetan word for nirvana. Nyangde topche means brings us to nirvana. So gewa, a good deed, is one in which in the short term, reshikla, the result is a pleasant experience and ultimately protects us from suffering and brings us to nirvana. That's what gewa is. That's what a good deed is. That's what defines a good deed. Now, the good deed we're talking about is the seed we're planting. And when it is sufficiently numbed, right, cooked to its result, our experience is pleasant in the short term and protecting us from suffering, taking us to nirvana ultimately. Now, there are 3 time frames within which any given mental seed planted can ripen into its result, we've learned. It is possible to plant a karma, collect a karma in this life with sufficient power that karmic seed numbins, right, cooks to its ripening within that same lifetime. That's the basis of the Diamond Way teachings, is how to make karmic seeds with that kind of power. A karmic seed planted can also ripen in the very next lifetime. Second time frame that a seed can ripen. Third time frame that any given seed can ripen is in any lifetime after the very next one, right? They're just covering all their bases. A deed done in this life might ripen in this life if we did it powerfully enough and feed it powerfully enough, or it'll ripen in very next lifetime, or it'll ripen sometime after that, which means the experiences that we're having now and now and now and now are coming from maybe seeds that we planted earlier in this life, if we did it with enough strength for them to ripen that fast. More likely, it's ripening from deeds, bless you, that we did in our previous lifetime or any lifetime before that. There's a lot of implications in that seemingly very simple explanation. Again, reinforcing our understanding that what we do now and now and now and now and now is not influencing our next moment the way that we think it is. In fact, it's influencing our future, like long-term future. And they say that to be a Buddhist, our concern is our future lifetimes, right? Our greater concern is how our deeds now are forming our future lifetimes, rather than concern for how our deeds now are forming our current lifetime, right? Unless you're in the Diamond Way, our focus is on creating a future lifetime that keeps me in the Dharma, that keeps me progressing, that keeps my Bodhisattva vows, all those things. We're focusing on our future lifetimes. And anyway, so this is why, this definition of a good deed. And we'll see how that all comes together in a minute. Yes, Kong Li, I'm not sure I can take a question now. Tell me what it is and I'll decide whether I can answer it now or not.
Okay, this is very interesting. Okay, nowadays, Geshe-la used to say that if let's say you want to have your good seed ripen faster, you can do coffee meditation. And I'm sure it is from this one, the Abhidharma as well. And then because just now because normally we do believe that when we do a good deed and then it will ripen next life or the life after next. So normally what Geshe-la used to say, okay, you do coffee meditation and then you can get fast response or fast result. Yeah. So where this come from, is it from Abhidharma as well?
It is from Abhidharma and Lamrim, that rejoicing practice waters our seeds. That is all very true. And it is also true that you can plant a seed, now and see a result 2 months from now. And it would be a great debate whether it was the seed you planted or it was similar seeds that seed added to that are ripening. And for the audience, Geshe Michael's talking to when he gives those teachings, right? It's a useful teaching. It's one of those skillful means.
Yeah, I understand it, because no, I just want to to get the original source,
Yes,
for this coffee meditation.
right.
So
Buddha.
where it comes from.
Buddha.
Yeah. Abhidharma as well?
It's in Abhidharma, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. It's part of the complete path of karma. We'll see. We'll get there. All right. So what's the definition of a good deed? A deed that in the short term, its result is a pleasurable experience, and in the long term, it protects us from suffering and brings us to nirvana. So does that mean any old kindness that we do fits this definition of a good deed? We could say yes, and we could say no. We could say, Chris, yes?
Doesn't morality kind of fuel the whole process?
Right. And we're developing what we mean by morality in this class. We'll see. So we can do a kindness because we were taught to do a kindness. Hold the door open for the elderly lady. And so you just do it. And that is going to ripen as somebody being kind to you in the future. But is it necessarily going to also protect you from suffering and take you to nirvana? To be kind because you were told to, or to be kind, because just habitually. So you could say yes, because when we do a kindness and we get a negative result, right? If that happens enough, at some point we'll go, there's something wrong with this picture, what's happening in life, and it'll set us on a spiritual path. So we could say, yes, any old good deed will eventually take us to nirvana, because if we do good deeds and get beat up for it, we're finally going to question. But you could also say, no, just any old good deed doesn't qualify it as a virtue, because a good deed done with a still mistaken state of mind is not going to bring us ultimately to freedom from suffering and nirvana. So it takes something else happening during our kind deed to make that kind deed be a gewa, to be a good deed, to be a virtue, by way of this definition. Okay, so let's go on to migewa, right? Did I say everything I was supposed to say? Yeah. No, I didn't. There's more here. So what is that state of mind that makes any particular kindness be a good deed, meaning a virtue, something that's going to both ripen as a short-term pleasure and a long-term bring us to nirvana? We need to have clearly in mind the no self nature of the me, of the object of my deed, and of the deed that I'm doing. We want to have wisdom in our mind to the extent that we can as we're doing a kind deed. So we can habitually smile at people and hold the door open and be kind. And we can learn to do those same things because of, in this school, the no self nature of those three spheres. In highest school, because of karma and emptiness, or because of bodhicitta. Remember the classes we had where when our mind is imbued with bodhicitta, even the tiniest little deeds become causes for our Buddhahood. This is why that bodhicitta in mind is the wish to become enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. But we have that wish in mind because we understand the no self nature of me and all things. And that implies we understand that what I'm experiencing as me and my experience is my seeds ripening, a time to plant new seeds that will ripen sometime in the future. What I want to create is a future where everybody's happy. The way I do that is by planting my seeds with that wisdom now. So this is leading us into that, developing that ability to have karma and emptiness in the back of our mind all the time. And then for a Mahayanist, that means bodhicitta, right? Not even in the back of our mind, like in the perception that we have goes through the mist of understanding karma and emptiness and wanting everybody to know it as we do anything, right? We're trying to imbue our mind with that. The extent to which we have that consciously in mind as we reach out to open the door for the senior is the extent to which the seed that we're planting while we do that becomes a worldly kindness that will come as a pleasure that wears out someday, leaving us wanting for more, and so a suffering, and a seed that's planted with a certain amount of wisdom that will grow our wisdom bigger. Right? So the deed is not defining whether it's a kindness, a virtue, or an unkindness. It's the state of mind that we have as we're doing the deed. Right? Now that's a bit dangerous, because if all it takes is a state of mind to make a deed virtuous or not, why can't I stomp on the cockroach with the wish to bring them to total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, and have stomping on the cockroach be a good deed, be a virtue? And it's like, technically you could do that, right? If you are a high-level bodhisattva and you can, take their mind to paradise, and right. But if we're not that, don't use, oh, my mind's so pure, as justification to do things that hurt people. Right? So that's why we like tiptoe through these courses, so that we're building this foundation, so we don't jump to the wrong conclusions when we get the punchline too soon. But we've all got the punchline. Like, we had the karmic goodness to get the punchline first. And now you're very wise to go back and grow the foundation underneath the punchline. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so now, migewa, not good deed, not virtue. How do we define a non-virtue, an unkind deed? Geshe-la used the words good and bad, right and wrong. And those words in English are so loaded with judgment. But that's partly what we're talking about, is to take the judgment out of those words. And you'll see what I mean, I hope, in a second. What am I doing here? So the definition of migewa, non-virtue, is namen yidu mi ongwa mi dewa nyongwa ni migewa. So non-virtue is ripening result that is unpleasant. I got to get my notes here. Nomen, undesirable. Yidu mi ongwa is undesirable. Mi dewa is unpleasant. And yongwa is experience. A non-virtue ripens as an experience that is undesirable, unpleasant. Flat out. Anytime we're having an unpleasant experience, we are ripening the result of some kind of unkindness that we did before. Anytime we are experiencing a pleasantness that wears out, we are experiencing a kind deed that was done under the influence of a mistaken state of mind, right? Ignorance. Anytime we experience a pleasure that doesn't wear out, is there such a thing? As we experience ourselves being protected from suffering, as we experience ourselves in nirvana, we are experiencing the ripening results of a virtue. So stated that way, it's like, I don't know that I've yet experienced a ripening result of a virtue. I don't know if I'm on my way to nirvana or not. It's just something to think about here. Have we actually done any actual virtue? We've all done lots of kindnesses. Lots of kindnesses. But have any of them been virtue yet? Right? Geshe Michael would say yes, yes, a million times yes. So, don't sink into a black hole from hearing me say that. Yes, Roxana.
When you're saying that, it's like with the correct motivation, with the correct speech, with the
Right.
purest of all,
Right,
with pure ultimate bodhicitta.
right,
That's what you mean. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
right. Ultimately.
Ultimately.
But
yes.
these are not black and white, right? So that's where Geshe comes from. He says, no, that's not, you don't do a actual virtue, until you're 3 days away from nirvana. It's like, it's all accumulating, shades of gray,
Yes.
turning white, right? From black to pure white, pure black to pure white. We're all on this continuum.
Like, for example, I've been thinking back then when you taught this class, you had a whiteboard, right?
Yeah,
And you used to have your markers, different colors, and you would be writing and we would following you and you just place them up. And now you just, so that means that it's accumulation of also
right,
how our seats have been shifting. And now we
Right.
have a white screen and you'd have to be pulling it up, getting it down.
right, right. Which if this is pleasant for you, this is a ripening of goodness.
Right.
If the other way was more pleasant for you, then to have this one that's less pleasant is a ripening of, badness. It's not the it itself. That's where we're growing with this.
Yeah.
So-
But for example, I'm sorry, with this, it's lower because you talk as you each, and I write and I take my notes. With the other one, you were writing to, and I was writing to, and I was almost following you a lot easier
when I wrote it,
when you
Right.
wrote it. Yes,
right.
right. And now I just have to like fast.
I know. I like the other way better too, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the definition of a bad deed, wrong deed, harmful deed? That deed which brings us a karmic result which is undesirable, unpleasant. what's a good deed, a virtue? That deed which in the short term brings us a pleasant result and ultimately brings us freedom from suffering, bringing us to nirvana. So it means that a kind or harmful deed is revealed by way of its result, not by way of its being done. Do you see that? Good or bad is defined by how it comes back to us. Right and wrong is defined by how it comes back to us. And there's the rub, because if the experience we're having now is the result of some deed that happened 2 million lifetimes ago, how can I possibly connect the dot? Right? Even if it was a deed that I did when I was 3, like I don't remember being 3, maybe 4, but I can't make the connection between what's happening now and what I did before, because I can't remember what I did before. And yet the whole power of karma is in understanding this correlation between my actions now of body, speech, thought, and what I'll experience in the future. That we need to know the karmic cause and the karmic results in order to have enough information to make our own choices, which is what this, this whole system is about, making your own educated, compassionate, loving choice in behavior. So we have a problem. We're being told everything you experience is a result, everything you do is a cause of some future result, but by the time you get the result from the deed that you do, you have forgotten the deed that you did. So there's no way to give yourself feedback, right? There's no way to, do you see what I'm saying? There's no way to be sure exactly. So, we did that whole course. It was course 4 about Buddha is, what was it? Sema Girpa, one who turned correct, meaning they didn't know and they became one who did know, right? Who they weren't one who had valid perception all the time, and they became one who does have valid perception all the time. And the ramifications of that is that they then know our suffering, know how its causes, know how we can stop making its causes, etc. And we could prove all that to ourselves logically if we actually do it. But even logically we can come to a valid perception of the no self nature of subject object interaction between. But logically, we still cannot come to the direct correlation between this experience and what I did to make that experience, right? That's deeply hidden reality, the specific deed that caused, there was a moth on my ceiling earlier, and it's like the exact deed that I did whenever I did it, that planted the cause that numbed, grew into the result of, oh, there's a little moth on my ceiling. There is a direct thing that I did that created that. We can't logic that out. We can logic out the reasoning, but the specifics we can't know until we reach that state of omniscience, and then we know it directly. We experience it directly. Yeah. So these teachings say, in order to understand the karmic correlations well enough to use them to change our own behavior, we would want to prove to ourselves that the being who's teaching us about those karmic correlations is a valid authority, which is why we went to the trouble to try to show ourselves a method of proving that this being we're calling a Buddha is not the creator of the world, but the teacher of the what does create the world, which is Lele Jigten, that's okay, right? Movement of our own mind and what it motivates. Once we have done that satisfactorily, okay, that being who teaches the karmic correlations is a being that heard himself teach it, motivated by love and compassion to help me stop my suffering and reach nirvana. And they cannot hear themselves say wrongly because then I can accept the teachings on the karmic correlations and apply them to my own behavior. And when we've proven it to ourselves, we're less likely to reach a point where enough yak poop hits the fan that we will give it up. Right? If we're operating on blind faith and our faith gets challenged enough, right? We're going to finally break. The faith will break. The seeds for faith will break. Faith born in logic becomes stronger, this tradition proposes. Because even as we're being kind and yak poop is thrown at us, and we're being kind and more yak poop and more kind and more yak poop, our logic will keep us going, right? Yak poop is burning off when I threw yak poop. Being kind's gotta come back as something nice someday. Just plain nice. Who cares about nirvana here, right? When we understand clearly, we'll fall back on seeds in, seeds out, with the time gap, right? That awful time gap. But what if we didn't have the time gap? If we didn't have the time gap,
then the seed will not be so powerful. The result will not be so powerful.
exactly. So, here comes the mosquito, lands on your hand. Our society says smack it before it bites you because it carries disease. And you smack it, you'll protect everybody else it was going to bite from that disease too. And so we go book, right? We don't really even think it through. We just go mosquito, flat. If there was no time gap, the instant we smashed that mosquito, our own body would get smashed. We would smash as the bug was smashed, because that's the karmic result of smashing somebody, is to get smashed. How many times would you smash a mosquito if the instant you smashed that mosquito, you got smashed? Right. Hopefully none, because you saw somebody else do it when you were 4 years old and you go, I am not going to do that. Right? Because you made the correlation because everything is instant. things can't be instant. You can't have a result and a cause at the same time, because then they would be the same thing, Arya Nagarjuna investigators. Right? There has to be some time gap. Why does it have to be so long? That's a different story. But we don't want karma to be instant. Because you can't move through life without hurting somebody just by being awake, and going to the grocery store. And then it's like, whoa, that's a Debbie Downer. How am I ever going to get out of this? Well, because of the no self nature of all of that, we can stop doing it. We can create a world in which you don't step on bugs, when you walk in the grass. And we think, well, that's impossible, but it's not. Nothing's impossible in karma and emptiness. There's just that thankful time gap. Otherwise, we just get, crushed, suffocated, eaten. Eaten is the most thing, right? All right, where'd I go off on that? And I went right through our break time. Let's take our break so I can regroup. I'm going to stop the share. Pause the recording. Oop, I almost shut us off. Pause recording. Pause recording. Okay, we're back. Okay, so now we see how to think of the words should, shouldn't, good, bad, must, I need to. We understand better those terms. We're learning karma. We're hopefully going to choose to study and work with these karmic correlations that we'll be learning, because Buddha said we should, but not because Buddha said so, right? When we use in English, when we say you should do such and such, like when somebody says to me, Sarani, you should da 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 da, there's a part of me that goes, don't tell me what to do, right? I try really hard not to use that should word to other people, because you're right, it's a negative. It has a negative connotation. Even my own mind, when I'm talking to myself, so Ronnie, you should get out of bed earlier. Don't you tell me what to do, right? There's this reaction. But now we're understanding that Buddha tells us what we should take up and what we should give up based on the karmic result of that karmic seed that we can't make the connection. So now the should means based on this omniscient being who knows better than me, they're telling me, look, right, if you could see it for yourself, this is the choice you would make. You can't see it for yourself. So I'm just trying to give you a shortcut. I'm trying to help you here when I say you should do such and such. So maybe we can start using our should word for ourselves, but don't then turn on to somebody else who's not so well trained and says, Buddha says you should blah, 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 right? And expect them to go, oh, you're right. Thank you very much, right? Because we don't do that when, somebody else says to us, you should, da, da, da. We go, okay. So be careful with good, bad, should, shouldn't, right? All of those words that are so loaded, at least in English, with judgment, connotation, I know better than you, and don't use them for other people. And even when you use them for yourself or within your Dharma community, do we know for sure that the other person, is as well trained as you? Just be careful. But I don't also want to say, Buddha never said we should take this up and give that up. He does say that. We should do that. But based on, right, that enlightened mind knowing exactly that, like imagine being the enlightened being watching me with a hammer in my hand, smacking my big toe, all the while saying, why does my body hurt so much? How come I can't stop hurting, right? And Buddha's going, just put the hammer down, honey. You should just put the hammer down. And I hear, don't tell me what you did do. Do you see all of this about what Buddha taught? It's not about proving that we should say, oh yes, Buddha said so, so I'll do it. It's about, this is why he said so. Ah, I get it now. Okay. Good, bad deeds are defined by how they come back to me. I don't really know how any given deed is going to come back to me without relying upon this being who taught about it, without relying upon those teachings. Does that mean they created it? No. Does that mean I can blame Buddha for stuff? No. But I can use those teachings as guidelines for my own behavior. All right. So we have another definition. Here it is. It goes to the period. Yidu en miang. Yidu en miang kepa dini le shenpe le lungmatan. Le lungmatan. It's the term they use for neutral karma. Lungmatan. It means literally, it means something never spoken by the Buddha. But it doesn't mean that neutral karma is something that Buddha never talked about. It means this thing called neutral karma are deeds that Buddha taught are not clarified, meaning a neutral karma is a karma that is neither, it brings neither a pleasant result nor an unpleasant result. Buddha did teach about neutral karma, apparently. But it gets the term lei lungmatan because Buddha did not say this kind of deed makes neutral karma. Neutral karma is any deed that when its ripening result comes, it's not pleasant and it's not unpleasant. And I don't know, my own mind goes, how can you really have neutral karma, right? That I don't see how you could ever be not pleasant, not unpleasant. I mean, maybe in deep sleep, but then even still, there's some level of feeling and discrimination going on all the time, we're taught. So I don't really understand the ramifications of this neutral karma, but here it is in Abhidharma Kosha, speaking to the detailists of the time, who, if you've got positive karma and you've got negative karma, you must have neutral karma. So what's neutral karma? Neutral karma, yidu eng mi eng means desirable result, yidu eng, and mi eng, or undesirable result. Gepa means give you. These two other types neutral karma is. So neutral karma is something that, let me see. Neutral karma is karma which is other than those two which give you desirable or undesirable results. Neutral karma is karma, which is other than Shenpei, those two dinyi of pleasant results and unpleasant results. Any deed done that brings a result that's other than a pleasant result or an unpleasant result is neutral karma. Maybe we could say would be neutral karma if we could even make it. Not clear to me. All right, now, Gewa, this virtue, it can be divided into 4 different kinds. And here are the 4. Dundam Gewa, No Niki Gewa, Sunden, and Kunlong. Dundam Gewa, Dundam means ultimate virtue. So it sounds like we're talking about a deed that we could plant that would be the ultimate action of body, speech, or mind. But actually, they say this Dindam Gewa, it means ultimate good deed. And in Abhidharma Kosha, the word Abhidharma meant the knowledge that takes us to the highest thing, and that highest thing is nirvana. And in this same way, what they mean by Dundam Gewa, the ultimate goodness, is to be nirvana-sized, to be in nirvana, to reach nirvana. No, to be nirvana, to be in nirvana is the ultimate good deed, meaning the result of all the good deeds that we did will ripen as us being arhat. So they say, technically then, this Dindam Gewa is one of the 4 kinds of Gewa, but nominally, because it's not the deed, it's not talking about the deed that you did, it's talking about reaching the final result. So it is an ultimate good deed to be nirvana, right? To reach a mind that's free of all mental afflictions. But the rest of these are deeds that we do, right? The kinds of things that we do that make those deeds good deeds. No Niki Gewa. No means nature. Niki means by very nature. So here are deeds, virtue, Gewa, good deeds, that are by their very nature virtue. And it's like, wait a minute. This whole school is about selflessness, right? Things don't have their own natures. And now we're talking about deeds that have their very nature of being a goodness. What's going on here? But what we're going to see is that what makes these particular deeds done with these states of mind is something that's absent. That makes the deed become this no Niki Gewa. So it is consistent with an essential nature of goodness, because what makes it the goodness is some kind of absence. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 deeds that are by their very nature good deeds. The first 3 of them are called 3 root virtues, like 3 mental functions that when we have those in mind as we do a deed, make the deed be virtue. Du chak mepa, shedang mepa, timuk mepa are these first 3. Du chak, shedang, and dong, and timuk are the 3 poisons. Remember the wheel of life, and the center of the wheel of life is the pig, the chicken, and the snake, or the rooster, or the pigeon, and the snake. Ignorant liking, duchak, ignorant disliking, shedang, and ignorance itself, timuk. Here, duchak mepa, mepa means not there. So ignorant liking, not there. Duchak mepa. Shedang, ignorant disliking, not there. Shedang mepa. Timuk, ignorance itself, not there. If we had a state of mind that's free of ignorant liking, as we are interacting with some pleasant experience, then our interaction with that pleasant experience, whatever we do, whatever we will do in response to that, will be a gewa, will be a good deed by very nature. Because if we don't have ignorant liking in the place of a pleasant experience, we don't act or react towards it in an ignorant way. So a silly example would be when I have duchak, ignorant liking, and there's 10 people in a room and 1 bowl of ice cream, my personal favorite kind, my ignorant liking, right, is going to start this, how do I get this bowl of ice cream, right? I don't know, do I sneak it away and eat it by myself, or, what do I do, right? With my ignorant liking in charge, I'm trying to figure out how I can get it for myself. When duchak mepa is my state of mind in the face of that bowl of ice cream that's my favorite and 10 people in the room, there isn't an inkling of how do I get this for myself, right? The absence of ignorant liking automatically takes that bowl of ice cream, right? Here, have a bite. Here, have a bite. Here, have a bite. Here, have a bite. Here, have a bigger bite. If there's a trace of my ignorant liking still in there, I'm giving them little bites to be sure that there's a bite left for me. If my ignorant liking is not there at all, I'm giving them the biggest bites I can give. And when all 10 have had their bites and I get to, oh, there's no bite left for me. If I have duchak mepa, right, it will be, yay, I just made, ice cream for everybody forever. True or not true at that moment, doesn't matter. My example is about what our response would be in any given situation of something pleasant when our state of mind is duchak mepa instead of duchak, right? Not just free of ignorant liking, but like the opposite. No ignorant liking, which means wise liking. Same for shedong mepa. Shedong is ignorant disliking. Ignorant disliking means that's unpleasant. I need to protect myself from it, avoid it, stop it. And grossly, anything I need to do to stop this unpleasantness for me is what I need to do. Right? Grossly, it's like we're willing to harm another to protect myself or my loved ones. Ignorant liking. Sedang mepa means not just not ignorant liking, but understanding so well the emptiness of the unpleasant thing or other that's causing this unpleasant experience, the selflessness of me and the selflessness of the reaction, meaning I understand so clearly that this is my seeds ripening, and however I act next is gonna bring something similar or something different. My inclination to behave towards an unpleasant thing is vastly different when my state of mind is shedang mepa instead of shedang. Right? Shedang means that unpleasantness is coming from it. Shedang mepa is this unpleasantness is a ripening of my own past behavior. I'm burning it off and I can plant new. Now that doesn't mean you no longer avoid unpleasantness. It means we're no longer willing to harm the other to protect ourselves. It does not mean you stay there and let somebody beat you up, right? That's not helping them and that's not helping you. You are very welcome to run away fast. You are very welcome to dial 911. You should pull the fire alarm, create a distraction, get out of a nasty experience. Because we don't want them to perpetuate it and we don't want me to do something nasty, which the longer we stay in an unpleasant situation, the more likely we will eventually fall back on old habit, which is to blast, right? To hurt, to harm. And so Sedang Mepa is a little tricky. It's not, oh, let anything bad happen to me, right? Bodhisattva says that, let all the bad deeds come on to me. And when it does, right, that very Bodhisattva, wow, where is all this coming from? Like, whoops. Sedang Mepa is understanding the true nature of the whole situation well enough that our natural response is to be kind, right? Not harm. Sedang Mepa. The deeds that we do under the influence of Sedang Mepa are Gewang by very nature. No Niki Gewang. Am I getting it across? It's the state of mind. Timuk Mepa is the not present ignorance. Ignorance is that angry yelling boss is in them, from them. My hurt feelings is being caused by them. My deserving happiness is in me from me, and how dare they do that to me. Right? Ignorance. Timuk Mepa is the state of mind of my seeds ripening, my seeds ripening, my seeds ripening. If we have Timuk Mepa, then we also are going to have Duchak Mepa in the face of pleasant and Shedong Mepa in the place of unpleasant. And so obviously, the state of mind of Timuk Mepa will make everything we do a deed that will give us a good result in the short term, freedom from suffering, and nirvana in the long term. Because with the state of mind of Timuk Mepa, we could no more smack the mosquito as take the hammer and whack our foot. Not that we wouldn't, it's that we couldn't. Okay, our way of experiencing would be so different when in our mind is Timuk Mepa. But we can try, right? We can pretend we have Timuk Mepa in easy situations of pleasant and unpleasant. And the extent that we try will help us choose our behaviors differently. Just because we're in the state of mind of this is ripening results, what I do is planting new. And it just shifts our perspective. So these first three states of mind, when we have any one of them, the extent to which we have any one of them in mind as we're doing our action makes that action of body speech a good deed by its very nature. You see, it was the nature of the mind, not the deed. Then there's two more states of mind, Notsa and Trelyu. These are called two thoughts of virtue. And we'll come back to Notsa and Trelyu again and again and again. They're really important concepts to understand. And they're tricky because they have a gross level and then they have many levels of subtlety, as you'll come to find. So Notsa, the literal translation of Notsa is shame. And in the English language, shame has a negative connotation. You know, somebody shames me, they put me down, or I'm ashamed of myself. You know, it's a feel bad kind of term. But what Notsa is trying to get across is this state of mind that says to myself, I will refrain from that negative deed, even if nobody else ever knows about it. That's the state of mind of Notsa. It means we have this self-conscientiousness or level of self-esteem that holds our bar of behavior at a certain level, regardless of any other's judgment about it, our own personal, what would you call that in English? It's kind of self-esteem, but it's a self-esteem that through which we decide our behavior, right? This is about states of mind that color our behavior choices. Notsa is related to oneself only. Trelyu is called consideration. It means our consideration for what the deed we're about to do, how it would impact others. And here, like at the beginning level, our concern is I will refrain from doing that deed because if somebody else saw me do it, I'd be embarrassed, or they would judge me, or they wouldn't like me as much. Trelyu grows to be, I will refrain from that deed because of the influence it would have on someone else. Or I will do that good deed because of the influence I hope it will have on that other person, a positive influence. All right, so you can get a sense of these two. One is, well, both of them are about our criteria for behavior choice. Notsa means I have a certain level of behavior below which I will not go, even if nobody knows. I have a certain level of behavior below which I will not go because of the influence it will have on others, the impact it will have on others. Do you see the difference? We already have these two mental functions going on within us as we choose our behaviors. We're wanting to learn to recognize them and to use them to help us choose our actions based on our growing understanding of these karmic correlations that we're learning about from the Buddha's teachings. Right? So find two words that inspire you to go looking for your notsa and trelyu. You know, if shame makes you go, I don't want any part of it, just use notsa and trelyu. That's what I use. I just use the unfamiliar words because then I can pack them with new meaning and learn to recognize, you know, what's my bar? Am I willing to? I'll tell you my bar. I have houseplants again. I love plants. I love, you know, having the greenery around. You know, I live in the desert, so greenery is so precious. And I've had them for years and I've given them all away. And then they come back and I give them away and they come back. Like literally the same plant. Some of them, right, have come back like 3 times. Others are other plants, but they all have history. Like I have one in particular that was my friend's and she moved away and, you know, I probably won't ever see her again. And I have her plant and it's got white flies, you know, and I'm a nun. I can't kill white flies. What do I do? How do I protect my friend's precious plant from white flies? So, you know, I'm confessing. I take the plant out, I shake them. I disturb the white flies' houses to try to get rid of them. I justify that. Do you see my bar? In the secrecy of my own life, I shake the white flies off their leaves and I squeeze the leaf that has the little egg. Like I'm big confession here. Otherwise, that precious plant is gonna like get its juices sucked out of it and my connection to my friend Mary's gonna be gone. Do you see? There's my bar. That plant is more important than the little white flies. Although I do say, you know, come be students, go to Buddha Paradise, but I'm fooling myself. I should just give the plant up. That's my bar. I found my bar. It's the white flies on my plant. Nobody else I'm willing to harm. So you get the idea. Okay. A healthy sense of notsa and trelyu keeps us at doing kindness instead of selfishness. And we already have it. our task is to identify those states of mind and grow them and use them intentionally to guide our behavior. Yeah, we have them already. We can do it. Can I ask you to keep your questions until the end? Okay. So these 5 states of mind, when we have them, the extent to which we have them, colors our deeds into what can be deeds of their very nature, goodness. There's 2 more. We're in the 4 kinds of gewa. Sunden means, Sunden, where is it? Sunden means virtue by association. So here, this means that as we're doing any given deed, we have the mental, we have the focus of attention on the deed that we're doing. And at the same time, there are other mental functions going on at the same time. So this is called a mental link of virtue by way of the mental link. So if the deed that we're focused on